And so I'd like to welcome to the stage Kobi Rozengarten from Jerusalem Venture Partners, Shalgo from China Synergy Funds, Gilad Novik from Horizons Ventures, Jacobsson from SparkLabs Global, and Ronen from Carmel Ventures. So thank you very much. So we've been hearing about China. Is everybody mic'd up now, or almost?
Sharing. It's a sharing.
It's a sharing economy. This is a sharing mic economy too.
Okay, we'll share.
Okay, it's working. You can hear anything?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good. All right. So we've been hearing a lot about China. I'd be interested in the panelists' views of where they think China tech innovation is right now, particularly as it compares to Silicon Valley and Israel. I'd be interested in your views, just going down the line, about where you think China tech is now. Is it still a copying thing, or is it much more innovating now, or micro-innovating? And is it innovating for the global market or for the Chinese market? So these are kind of the questions I have in mind. So why don't we start with you, Net, and we'll go down the line. Net has been an investor in a Chinese company that I wrote about in my first book, Silicon Dragon. He was very involved in Maxbon, which is a Chinese internet browser. So Net, what is your feeling about where China innovation is right now in terms of technology?
Well, I will only speak about the internet space, because that's the space I know in terms of my experience with China. Unfortunately, I don't think there's too much innovation there, although very innovative and interesting business models. But I still feel that I see the same trend as that I've seen over the last 10 years I've been active in China. There is a lot of, even the new phenomena are basically, most of them are copying existing popular models in the US, but they're maybe doing it significantly better in China. And obviously much faster in the space of micropayments and so on. But I don't see any great innovation in the internet space right now, but there might be people who disagree with me there.
Well, we had William talking about WeChat earlier as a very innovative business model.
Yeah, well, but originally it came from ICQ. In chatting in general.
Instant messaging.
Right. I was part of ICQ also back in the day, but it's interesting how Tencent took that over and made it turned it into a very strong business. So that's why I'm saying, in terms of innovation, the business models are definitely many times even more interesting coming out of China. So at ICQ, we had very difficulty turning it into profit, except at selling it to AOL, which was a great deal at that time.
So the issue will be for Tencent about how to get WeChat global and all those different payment mechanisms that they have that are built into the messaging platform, how to get it global. So that'll be a really interesting trend to watch. Kobi, what do you think? What is your view? I know you're deeply involved with China, and you've started a global competition, recognizing China as well. So you must be a believer, but I'm interested in your view.
Yeah, but actually, as we are not really exposed to Chinese technology, we are more exposed to Chinese investors looking for Israeli technology. I'm involved with China for many years, been in the semiconductor industry, and my notion as to China, this is an economy that started as labor intense, then capital intense, then more design and manufacturing focus. And now it's all about technology, and technology, a lot of the technology is out of China. However, with our some exposure, we always surprised. I mean, China is, you cannot speak about on China as one place, one company. The thing that we see, we are very involved with Alibaba. We see a very, very advanced technology in some places and less in other places.
Okay. Gilad, I know Horizons has made numerous investments here in Israel. 29, I think?
Correct. So Horizon Ventures, similar to JPP, actually mostly focus in companies and startups outside of China, trying to bring money from China to the rest of the world, and actually as part of the strategy to try to implement some of the technologies that we invest in China.
So who do you think's ahead, China or Israel, and in what sectors in terms of technology innovation and where they are in progress?
So I think, again, when you actually talk about innovation, you see a lot of innovation coming out in Israel, Europe, US. In China, it's scaling, mostly actually developing similar technologies and actually implement on the big scale of population over there. Alibaba is a good example.
Okay, so it's all about scale then, not so much true innovation.
I think at the moment, yes, but I can see actually a lot of movement into incubators and accelerators in China that will change the picture in short time.
Okay. Ziv, what's your opinion? What's your viewpoint?
I would like to pay a little bit attention to government in China. If you all look in some material of the 13th five-year plan that is going to be published in March, I guess.
You have to hold the little speaker thing to you. It does.
Here.
There you go.
Anyway, what they are publishing today, among a lot of research that they published already, is some interesting information. Their target is to reach 2020 with a $10,000 GDP per capita. Yeah. They're now in 7,600, and in 2006 they were in 5,000. Now what they're saying is that since the 60s till today, 101 countries around the world reached $5,000 per person, and only 16 reached 10,000. And they researched who are those 16 and what's so special about them. And what they find, by the way, Brazil is not there, South Africa is not there, and most of the big countries are not there. They didn't succeed to do it. So what they found out, and they're writing it in open documents, is that those countries, in a way, use their own resources, cheap labor, natural resources, and so on, but couldn't jump to the next level of having their own R&D, which means they outsourced R&D from all over the world, but they couldn't develop by themselves. Now, in China today, education-wise, and also R&D-wise in companies in the free market, the situation is dire, for many, many reasons. Now, they are totally aware, and they write it, that they will not go over 10,000 without science being totally changed in China. So what we are going to see in the next 5 years is a huge effort toward this. Everybody knows that there is an internal conflict between free education, innovation, and the Chinese politics and way of governing. So it will be fascinating to see. But what is very clear is that they need this kind of new blood. They don't need the Chinese intelligentsia moving to the US, staying there 20 years, contributing to the American economy 20 years, and then coming back to China as investors or managers. What they need is Chinese engineers with experience developing science and startups in China. So you can go all over China today and see empty buildings as startup hubs, number 1, number 2, number 3, near every university, but you won't see so much people inside. And what is really missing from our side, from Israel, is the connection. Bringing much younger companies from Israel to be very active in China on a safe, in a safe environment, which is a big challenge. It's not an easy challenge. But what we heard all day today, and I was here from the beginning, is big companies, big investors, well-established companies with enough money to go by themselves to China and to act in China. While the biggest dream, I think, of the Chinese today is having young entrepreneurs, young companies, totally new technology coming very early over to their side and developing their IP in China. Now, this is not necessarily in conflict with what we do in Israel, if we know how to structure it well. And this is actually the biggest challenge. The future belongs to the young and small companies and not to the big companies. We don't have more than one Tnuva. We don't have more than one Machteshim Agan. We'll have a few more tens of big companies that will be purchased, but that's it.
So why did you start with the government then? You automatically...
Because I think they're reading the future quite well.
Uh-huh.
They're quite good at this. They've been doing that for 30 years. The country is moving ahead. I like what they're doing. Mm-hmm. I think Avi Lufton was here before. He mentioned some activities of the chief scientist of Israel. Mm-hmm. I think if it was a free discussion, I would ask him, what are they doing with those young companies coming to China and they're traveling with them? Because taking a young company to China and letting them meet potential investors in China in such an early age where the company doesn't even have a prototype, it's a big misunderstanding of the picture. I've been picking up the pieces a year later for the last 20 years. Okay. That's my profession.
Okay, let me move on. Let me move on to Ronen here. Ronen Carmel Ventures is very close to China as well, and has gotten a lot closer in your last fund. What's your view on where China tech innovation is now, and progress or that it's making, or not?
So I think the answer is not a simple good or bad. I think that the Chinese are very good in developing consumer end products. I think that they understand their local market very well, which behave very differently from what we're seeing in the Western world. So I think that they are very innovative in creating. You gave WeChat and Alibaba is good examples for this, and obviously there are others. I think that what they are severely lacking, and I also think that that's the secret of the kind of China-Israeli tech relationship, is that they are very behind on infrastructure. And I think that if you take a kind of a look back, technology infrastructure, right? So, so I think that if you look back at what has happened in the Western world in the past 15 or 20 years, first you had infrastructure, you had broadband internet, you had cloud computing, and once you had that infrastructure, it was easy to develop end-user mobile applications, etc., because you had the infrastructure to support it. In China, they've kind of rolled over directly to having 500 million people having smartphones, but suddenly they're looking back and they see, hey, we don't have data centers to support this, we don't have the bandwidth that we need in order to provide streaming TV, etc. Therefore, I think, again, very good in the end product and very much behind on the infrastructure.
Okay. But what do you see as China and Israel get closer together and begin to collaborate on fundraising and also tech innovation and deals? What do you see as the risk and the opportunities, and where are we on the pendulum? Gilad, I see you smiling, so I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
Risk and
I will learn for the next question not to smile.
Okay.
So I think in terms of opportunity, it's a big opportunity to Israeli startups, Israeli companies to actually get funding from Chinese investors, and this is a massive market to actually approach. So that's an opportunity, and I think it's a big one. In terms of disadvantages is trying to design technologies from day one for mass market in size of Chinese market, which is scaling in big time.
Yeah. Okay. Kobi?
Can you hear me without the microphone?
Well, we have a video, so it's better if you use the microphone.
Okay. So the big opportunity, again, as a VC, it's what we are doing. We are raising money, and then we invest the money, and hopefully we give some return to our investor. That's the plan. So from a raising money point of view, China is a big opportunity to all. It's not that we found China, they basically discovered Israel, and we see many investors that are ready to invest in Israel. We see two kinds of them. We see the enterprises that basically are not, they don't care about return on investment. What they're looking for is the deal flow, exposure, and co-investment opportunity. And I think that here we have a very good synergy. And then we have a financial investor. When we started looking for investor in China, we presented some of our return, and we are very proud that we have a concept of return, a good return to our investors. Like fund number 6, our latest, the previous fund was a 60% net IRR. And we came with that and presented to Chinese investor, and they said, what? That's all. That's basically, yeah, not good enough. We are looking to better than that. But we see a major change, and we see more financial investors coming from China, basically looking for opportunity out of China, and Israel is one of the places. So this is a great synergy, a great opportunity there.
Any risk involved with that?
LP, putting money, get returns, no risk. It doesn't get any other, very clear, no other right. So the only right that any LP will get for some kind of co-investment right if you put a big enough check.
What's been your experience co-investing with Alibaba?
So we are in the beginning of a process. They are learning and we are learning, and we just started in the Carmel that you are involved by Do and other.
Right.
We just started the process about a year or 2 years ago, and it's a learning process. For sure, they are looking. We had an Alibaba team here about 2 weeks ago. They met about 100 companies in 2 weeks, and
wow.
and at the end of the day, they would summarize and say, "Look, we have here at least 4 companies that we want to invest." And then after a week, they said, "Guys, we have to go back." And,
what were they looking for?
So
every tech sector?
Actually, no. This team, it's not the first team that came out of China, but this team was very focused on Internet of Things, automotive, computer vision,
okay,
and those kind of areas. So very focused on other things. So again, going back to your question, as to investment, we see a big opportunity, great synergy. We don't see any problem there. As to technology exposure, it's a case-by-case basis. There are few Chinese companies already active in Israel that I would be very careful working with them without mentioning any name. It's a one-way street in which they are busy transferring technology out of Israel to China. But there is one company that I believe that many here know without mentioning the name. All the other, we see a real synergy there, synergy in which we are bringing technology, they are bringing the market. We in Israel, and maybe it's a big secret, it's a small country, we don't control the end user, we don't have a real good access to the customer and consumer. So the synergy between Israeli technology and company that control the market and control the user, there is a good opportunity here, and I believe it will develop to a great partnership.
Okay, so one side the technology, the other side the market. Okay. Yes, Ronen, I know you want to...
So I'll just make a few comments on this. First, I think that the opportunities, I agree with Kobi very much. So the main opportunity is money. There's a lot of Chinese money that is looking for Israel. The Chinese have found us. I think that we have to be very prudent and say that one of the reasons that they found us is because they are mostly not welcome in the US, and it's a good way for them to get access to Western technology through Israel. Co-investing and working with them, and we have 4 major Chinese investors, and we've done several of co-investment with them. The relationship with the tech company, with the Baidus of the world, with the Alibabas of the world, have actually been pretty easy. And I always like to tell the story. So Tencent is an investor in Carmel. The people that we are working, or our point of contact in Tencent, is a guy that is a Wharton graduate, has been working in Microsoft for 8 years, was born in Beijing, has a Beijing University degree, but spent most of his professional life in degree, and went back to Beijing to get married to a Chinese woman and get back to his family. But his English is better than mine. His familiarity with the way of doing business in the West is probably better than mine. So in that sense, it was very easy doing business with those people, definitely in the tech world. Where are the risks? I think the major risk is that we are still in the honeymoon period. And
only about 2 years old.
Only about 2 years old. And I think that at the end of the day, they're apart from the financial side, which Kobi alluded to, they're looking for technology to come into China, and I think that we are very far away from delivering on this message. I think that even if you take, and again, Iron Source that you heard before is a portfolio company and of ours with making tens of millions of dollars in China, and we have Payoneer, which is making tens of millions of dollars in China. These are actually rare events, and mostly it's what we call China in and China out. Most of the business that he's doing is not inter-China. It's not going for Chinese consumers. He's helping Chinese companies get out of China and conquering other markets. And here you bring a familiarity with the Western world and the way you buy advertising, or the way consumer behave, or the way financial services are working, and to bring those Chinese companies, helping them in penetrating additional markets. That's something that we, I think, already starting to deliver the message. Whether we are going to change the lives of the Chinese consumer or the Chinese enterprise, I think this is very far from us to deliver. And if we won't be able to deliver, going back to the cultural differences, the way of doing business, etc., then but we will face some kind of misalignment through the years.
I have something to say about it.
Go ahead, Steve.
I think you have to limit expectations. I mean, those companies that we're talking now, like Iron Source and like others, are rare successes, and the fact that they are helping mostly the Chinese to sell outside of China is a success of selling themselves as a company, not as a technology. Now, the other 98 companies that Alibaba didn't choose, who are mostly my clients, are companies that are hoping to sell something to Chinese, or to help Chinese to sell abroad at the same time without getting eaten alive or reduced to zero. Now, the only way they can do that, normally, is by moving to China, starting the first steps by themselves, and identifying the right targets and the right potential partners, and also building a small team that will be able to function in front of those, improving the technology, localizing seriously, and so on and so forth. Not so different from a company here, a young company that opens the first subsidiary in the Silicon Valley for the same reason, that Americans have to talk to Americans and they have to be there all year. So in China, it's exactly the same, and the more young companies will actually do that and prevent themselves from getting money from China in early stages and giving back too much, because at that time they cannot call themselves a platform that does marketing in 40 other countries. They just own a prototype and they didn't improve themselves as a company yet. There's no reason to get that money and give away China so quickly.
Okay, we have a comment.
I can't say, but you mentioned all the Chinese money that's looking to be invested. Are you seeing, or do you expect to see Chinese interest in Israeli real estate?
Real estate.
And if so, will that be disruptive socially disruptive, considering the shortage of real estate?
Okay, I don't know how much you know the Israeli reality, but real estate in Israel, what you're meaning is basically constructions of apartments and next projects and so on. I was involved in this in recent weeks. Basically, all the residential building in Israel is controlled by the Merkaz Likud. That's basic in Israel, so it's politics. There isn't no foreign company yet ever built one house for apartments in Israel, neither Turkish, neither whatever, definitely not Chinese, is because it's politics. The only way to break that is to go to the big ports, Ministry of Defense, recent projects and so on, and try to push the first Chinese company there in order later for them to do more, because they're already here.
Okay.
Very complicated issue. A lot of barriers.
But not construction, investment. I'm not talking about construction, I'm talking about investment.
I can tell you that, and it was said before today by Schuster, I think, of KPMG, the main money in China today, which is all held by state-owned organizations, is looking to come here to invest. And this money will find a way to invest here, only they never invest in risky transactions. So they will go real estate the moment somebody will open the door for them.
What about
they will go startups as well, if the startups will be localized in China, proven in China, and backed by private investors in China, they will join.
Right.
So, and there's mountains of money there, and they will do it in the future.
And that's what happened in the United States. I mean,
I
that
guess
money
so.
found its way into...
Oh yeah,
into
big
real
projects.
estate,
Big projects. And by the way, the financial companies are actually driving first and bringing the construction companies with them later, which is very interesting.
Right.
Also.
So, just getting back to the risk and opportunities, what is your viewpoint on where we are, and what do you see as the main risk, and what are the main opportunities of Israel and China co-investing? But not only in funds, but in startups, in startups, emerging companies. Because I know that that's what you're concentrating in primarily, is emerging companies.
Right. Yeah, so we have a global fund that we set up 2 years ago, and we have invested in 50 companies to date. Actually, only one in Israel so far. Kind of shame, given that I live here. But it's just we're really investing all over the place. I think that first of all, I agree with all the comments being said before in terms of opportunities and so on. I think that what I've seen, which is very interesting, of course, is that Chinese money coming in, both from the corporates investing directly in Israeli startups, which has been an alternative to either Israeli VC funding or Silicon Valley only funding, which usually those have been the bigger alternatives. I think it's been very positive that there is, usually they can write bigger checks. If the company is targeting Asia or looking for Asia in one way or another, that can be an opportunity with getting funded by somebody who can actually help you in one way or another, whether it's Tencent, whether it's Alibaba, whether it's another internet company. The same thing we see going on in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley companies being funded directly by these companies. Obviously, there's a great interest in VC funds and tons of money being pumped in as well, which I think is very positive. There is a general environment that it seems that Israel and China, not only Israel and China, are becoming closer to each other for various reasons, of course, that most of them are pretty known. I think that's in general positive. The type of investors that I see can either be, they can have some Chinese investors, very big funds that are super aggressive, and their expectations, like mentioned here before, might be on returns might be bigger than what we're used to seeing here in general. You also have money coming in from people who simply don't care. It's just getting money out of China, investing outside of China. It doesn't matter almost what country. Obviously, Israel is very attractive to invest in, but we're seeing the same thing happen in Silicon Valley, elsewhere, even Sweden. So they just want to move money out, and if there is an opportunity for a good return one way or another, that's an alternative of just like less risk of having all their investments in China. So obviously, we have the Chinese very excited about the whole thing about Startup Nation. We see the same thing in Korea, where we are very active. And so obviously it's easier to market maybe Israel to Chinese investors, Asian investors. Some of them are super smart, some of them are more naive, and they just want to get a little bit part of Israel. Just like we wanted to get a little part of China, and then just invest in China without really understanding why.
Yeah.
Looking deeper at that.
So from what I've observed so far, it's mostly the China tech titans that are investing here, the Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, Foshan, etc. It's not really the Chinese venture capital funds.
Right, yes.
So why aren't they here yet? Because they're in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. It's a good question. I can't really answer that one. I'm sure my fellow panelists might be able to answer that. But it's corporate. Probably also because they move faster. I think they're more opportunistic. They can also invest straight out of the balance sheet. It might be easier for them to do that.
Okay. Well, several of the funds here have raised money from China. I'm just interested in how that door was opened. How did that happen?
So we were involved. Actually, JVP. We were involved in China in 2005. The vision was that China is opening, and we need to be there. And we had. I was not part of JVP then, but we had. Yesha, you were again, yeah. But we had partner in China. The first Israeli VC with a partner in China. So actually, for 2 years we were looking for opportunity, and nothing happened. And we said it's too early. We left China. Then we were not the first one to discover China again. I must admit that other VCs were more active than us. But at the moment that we understood that there is an opportunity here, we went to China. Again, the first wave was a wave of enterprises looking for Israeli technology, and then looking as VC as a good gateway into the market, understanding the market, so the Baidu, Tencent, HU, Alibaba, and others. Then what we see today, actually, financial investors are coming and more in Israel. The reason is they are going out of China, and Israel is another market to invest. What we see a new trend of fund that are coming.
Oh.
Actually, there is already one fund that invested in about 5 VCs in Israel. We were the first one.
From China?
From China, yes.
Can you say who?
Yeah, Shenzhen. So, and they are the first. They kind of fund. It's John Medvedev-like kind of an approach, crowd investment, and investing in Israel, in the United States, and other places. And then we see now more financial investors coming to Israel. A new trend that we see is more and more investors coming and saying, help us to build something similar in China. And basically, we are ready to work with you in order, to build something and invest in China. And as I know, there are a few VCs that are already going this direction. Our focus is Israel, but I know that other VCs are already raising funds and planning to invest out of Israel, which is money.
Okay. Yeah, Ronen, your fund also has China investment. So how did that door open? And what are the benefits of it? What is China getting out of it? What are you getting out of it?
So I think that our decision to go and try to expand our investor base to include also Asian investors, and again, China is just one of them, because there's Japan, there's Singapore, there are other investors. Yeah, it was part of a strategy that has said, the Asian market is going to become a very prominent market, and it's moving beyond component and semiconductor, which was the primary market maybe 10 or 15 years ago, to internet, to software, to something which is more core. And for us as a VC to have a better understanding, we would like to spend more time there, and the best way to have is just to have a direct relationship with the investment community over there. So basically, it's our portfolio companies that have pulled us to that region. Now, how the doors were open through local agents. How do you find a local agents is, I'm sure that everyone here can tell you great stories and horror stories, but you've got to have local people on the ground. Sometimes hard to say whether they are good or bad, but they are the ones who open the door. That they are the ones, and it was mentioned here in several of the panels before. You need to get high in the chain as soon as possible, because the decision making in China is really being done on the top, and if you have a good agent, you can get there. I think that the surprise for us was that once those doors are open, you come into a meeting, and the market was ready for us. I think that was the biggest surprise, because sure, you have a good agent, he can get you, a meeting with a chief executive, a very senior executive in Baidu or in Alibaba or wherever. But what's Israel? So the basic notion was, wow, that's great. It's good that you came. We started to think about Israel. We had you on the agenda. So the initial reaction was not, can you tell me where is Israel exactly on the map, that small country? Which is basically something that you could expect such a reaction from economy that was very self-sustained. So I think that the part that surprised us was not the ability to get those, but when we managed to get those meetings, the market was ready to receive the marketing pitches that we came to say about about Israel, about technology in Israel, about the mutual benefit that was there. That for me, I think, was a kind of a good surprise, which makes me think again that, like everything in China, there was a process that has decided and trickled down to corporates, to financial investors, to others, and kind of a more.
So did you have to spend a lot of time in China fundraising, or was it them coming to you, or how did that work?
So the answer is both, and I think, which is actually not a trivial answer, and I'm sure Kobi is going to agree with me, that Chinese, unlike many Americans, are not afraid of going on a plane and coming and catching a 12-hour flight to Israel. Even with allowed, exactly. So actually, the first meetings were done there, and the doors opening were done on the ground in China. But part of the due diligence process that they were doing and are still doing today on the direct investment that they had, and you know, Alibaba meeting 100 companies a week, Baidu meeting 100. You know, they come 20 people for 8 days or 10 days and have meetings from morning. This is a huge scale, and they're not afraid to do so. So
Yeah.
they're very, very active, and it's very reciprocal. The physical interaction is being done both here and there.
Well, that's great. Who are these people? Are they the venture capital units of these companies, or who are they?
So first of all, what we see are more people coming out of the technology. I mean, people looking for technology will be technical people and business people, but we see more and more corporate VC also joining them and looking for investment. So they are utilizing the corporate VC as arm to co-invest in the company.
So Tencent's corporate VC unit and Alibaba's VC with the decision making from China?
Actually, speaking about decision making, I agree that you need to meet the right people. But surprisingly, at least my experience is that, let's say, the people not on the top could make a decision of $10 and $20 million investment and could make it very fast. They didn't need a top-level decision. So the process of decision, you know, I worked in Japan for many years, and you know the Japanese way of making decision of consensus. Here, you meet the right guy, he's making the decision, and everyone is up.
So is Jack Ma here scouring around for deals?
I'm not sure that Jack Ma knows about it, but and the decision, no, he knows, but the decision level is not in his level.
Rebecca,
okay,
I have
yes.
a totally different take on it.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
First, we are very different. You are giants, and we are in baby steps now in VC. But we have 20 years of work in China before, and we recruited Chinese money in China. Our fund is registered in China, and we are looking to spend money on Chinese subsidiaries of the companies in Israel that we'll work with. So it's a different path, much more focused on smaller, younger companies and grooming them up before the next step in China. And we have a working relationship with those big companies. We are in the vendor list of Huawei and Intel and Lenovo and many other famous ones, all the telecoms and so on. We are servicing them for many years. Mm-hmm. And we have investments like Trig, or what used to be John Bryce, that is training them and picking on, and we have a very long relationship. So the trouble of getting there and getting their attention wasn't that big. Okay. The bigger trouble is that we are a new fund. So it's the first time somebody talks about this model. It's the first time that we encourage them to invest in such small companies. We are trying to gap and to bring them over there to prove their capabilities before offering them next.
Okay, let me get to, that sounds good. Gilad, let me get to you too, because Horizons Ventures is very interesting. Of course, with Li Ka-shing behind, you're not fundraising.
No, we are not.
But I'm interested in your view of the outlook for Horizons Ventures in Israel. You made 29 deals. You had really a home run with Waze. What else is on there?
So I think actually with Horizon, it's a very interesting story. And let me give you a little bit of a background first. So Horizon Ventures is the private investment arm of a gentleman called Li Ka-shing. Li Ka-shing is the richest guy in Asia. Made his money during the years in different businesses, but the beautiful thing about Mr. Lee is that a few years back he decided to contribute to the world by establishing a philanthropic organization called the Li Ka-shing Foundation, which contributes quite a lot of money into health and educational projects globally. to universities, hospitals in the US, Europe, and one of the latest contributions was to the Technion University here in Israel on the sum of $130 million. And that money came out of one of our companies' exits ways, which have been acquired by Google. And that's the twist, and that's where we, Horizon Ventures, actually enter into the pictures. We act kind of a vehicle to create money for the Likashim Foundation. We took a big risk 5-6 years ago entering the Israeli market. We were a very small fund, not that known here in Israel. And since we made 29 investments in Israeli companies out of a portfolio of around 70 companies, that's a big say about what we think about Israeli startups. And we were actually quite privileged and successful in Israel with exits of Waze and Onavo, which have been acquired by Facebook. And we keep investing in Israeli technologies and entrepreneurs because we believe that the quality of companies here in Israel are not less than the one in the Silicon Valley. Valuations are much more attractive here in Israel than in other parts of the world. And the quality is just really, really good.
How are you sourcing those deals? Since you've had 2 really big hits.
They're sourcing him.
Okay.
Not such a big challenge.
So
They're sourcing him, he doesn't have to source. Okay.
So at the beginning it was different. You know, a few years ago I had to actually scout in any possible way in order to actually find the best deals. During the years it changed, and now deals actually coming to us.
How many deals are you seeing per week?
I think it's within the hundreds that I have to actually filter. A lot of interesting companies approaching, not only from Israel, all over the world, and we have to pick the ones that we think that might be relevant to our focus of investment.
How many do you meet with per week?
Quite a lot. It depends. There are some concentrated days that I can actually meet 10, 15 entrepreneurs. There are others which are less.
Okay. All right, Yesha, did you have a comment earlier?
Just by the way, in 2 weeks we are going to be together in China. We are putting the cornerstone of the university together with Technion. I'm involved with the Technion. So it will be a Likashim investment of $250 million on a Technion-like university in China.
Where?
Yes, and that's an amazing project. Together with the Technion, establishing a Technion-like institute in China, in Shantou University, which is a very interesting project related to the subject we touched earlier. Mr. Lee, with his initiative, trying to raise a new generation of Chinese students thinking out of the box, not reverse engineering technologies, by actually thinking about himself how to become entrepreneurs, investing a lot of money in building that university, a few $billion, bringing the best technologies out of the West, bringing professors and many, many others, you know, to actually make it happen. And I think this is actually an amazing moment to see how we can actually combine forces with Israeli talent together with Chinese and actually do something which is quite impressive.
Sure. Okay. Yesha?
So I think I have a question that I think would be a great summary for us. We heard a lot about what happened in China, what is the past. I would really like to hear what do you think is changing in China? Because I think China itself is changing, and many of the assumptions and the sort of common understanding that we had in the past are a little bit changing now. So, for example, this example that you just mentioned on the Technion is a great example of something that you could never even imagine a couple of years ago. So, from your experience, what would be sort of the changes that we need to look forward?
I just want to comment on some things that were said before about how difficult it makes to make business in China. So, a couple of years ago, I was in charge of business development, international BD for Facebook, 2007, 2010. And I spent a lot of time in China, meeting with all the big internet companies, kind of undercover, reporting directly to Mark Zuckerberg. And I think that sometimes we still exaggerate how difficult it is to negotiate deals, how everything has to be signed up from the top. It's when you're moving in the internet space, things are different and they're changing rapidly. Chinese companies in the internet space are moving much more faster. I think investors as well. I think maybe things have been said here before about the patience and the high sign-offs and so on, typically comes from the older type of industries or much bigger industries. And so I would say that I feel like that has changed, and it's been changing for every year. So it's just one point I wanted to make there.
Okay.
I'm involved in China for many years, actually. Taiwan, being semiconductor, China, Taiwan, Korea, Japan, then China. And I thought that I understand China. And I met Ronen Chan before we raised money the first time. So we met him in Hong Kong. He's a good friend, and he said, "Kobi, I'm from Hong Kong. I'm Chinese. I'm investing in China in the last 15 years. I don't know anything about China." So to say that we understand China, it's something we are learning.
Okay. And how high is the tuition? No answer to that, huh?
I can talk a lot about it, but I live in China for 20 years, so it's a bit different angle. I've never had trouble doing business there. I feel totally comfortable over there, and I think maybe when I come here to Israel, I need to be more on my toes. I think you can see an amazing change in the quality of officials which are now joining the ranks of the government. I can tell you that I'm in touch with, I think Avi Lufton mentioned Wes and the Changzhou, Wujin area, all the new park over there. I'm doing business there for over 10 years. We have an incubator there, which is super successful and profitable. I think it's you can see the level of people who are dealing with us. Not Wharton graduates, but maybe, I don't know, Birmingham University graduates, whatever. People who are feeling a bit more free to talk and to initiate things. The top leaders are still a bit older generations, and they're not that brave, most of them, but some of them are. And those who are can do big things because they have a lot of power. So I think there is a gradual change. I think also inside the companies, you can see many more people who are much more brave, much more open-minded, and it wasn't like this 10 years ago.
Is there anything that scares the investors here on the stage about China?
I would just say that the time. Sometimes sometimes complicated things takes time.
It takes time.
It takes time to set things up. Negotiation can take time as well. Setting up entities or getting money out of China in potential exit if you invest in China is something that
all those changing regulations too. I mean, wouldn't that be kind of
they change all the time. That's a thing. Like Facebook terms and services back in the day, where it's changing every 3 months or what have you. It happens all the time. So it's unpredictable.
What about the slowing economy in China?
Yeah.
Anyways, to ask VC about being afraid and get a certainty is not the right question. Anyway, it's all about
VCs are risk averse.
Yeah, it's about risk. By the way, as Ronen said, China is, we see investors, our traditional investors are coming from United States, Europe, Israel, and China is just another layer. So the risk, this is the level of risk.
Okay. Any questions from the audience or comments? Going once, going twice. Going 3 times, that's it. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us for Silicon Drive in Tel Aviv. And give us one moment while we get our traditional VC panel photo.